Join me in the pledge.
Under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Do we got somebody on the call?
That was Clint.
Oh, that's Clint. Okay. All right. Yes, sir. All right, Mr. Novak.
Okay, Clint, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great, thank you. Chairman, Commissioners, good afternoon. Mayor, Commissioner, thank you for both coming and staff. Appreciate you all coming back. Today is the reconvening of our September 10th original conflict assessment meeting. From that meeting, the city and the county had agreed to recess the meeting in the hopes of trying to reach some resolution and come back today. Just for the purposes of the record today, the county went ahead and noticed it and put it in the paper. I know Clint's on the phone. He had indicated that the city would not be able to meet that deadline, but just for the purpose of the record today, county has no objection to the fact the city couldn't meet that. And in terms of procedural requirements, certainly would not object or contest that. The idea today is to bring the city and the county back together, see if we're able to reach some kind of resolution to the conflict that we've been discussing. We also, I'm pleased to say Ms. Kay Haddock's here today, so we thank her, the property owner. So hopefully you'll make it as a robust and comprehensive discussion as we possibly can. Chairman, I know that some of the commissioners are not here. They're actually out on the Cape working with the Air Force and Fish and Wildlife right now, and I know they wanted to be here, as well as Michael and Clay, but we can't be in two places at once. So Mayor, Commissioner, I just wanted to let you know that they all wanted to be here, but when they showed up, wheels up, everyone out to try to open the beaches. So for the purposes of this afternoon, just to kind of recap, after our September 10th meeting, we had sent a letter to the city and then copied Ms. Haddock on it, was trying to just essentially trying to summarize where we were at. And I'm going to try to paraphrase it, and then I'll turn it over to the chairman and the mayor and the commissioners to hopefully pick up and run with it. We had some, Ordinance 618, 619 were a voluntary annexation and a land use change ordinance adopted by the city of Port St. Joe back on August 5th. Following that, the county went ahead and adopted resolutions 2025-43 and 44, which were in opposition and objection to it, and is starting the conflict assessment under the Florida statute. As I indicated, we went out and we all met back on the 10th of September, and we're reconvening today for the purposes of trying to reach some kind of resolution. I had sent a summary letter that the commissioners had asked me to, following that September 10th, and on September 11th, I sent a letter to the city staff and the city officials, as well as Ms. Haddock, the owner of as H&K Gulf Coast Holdings. And basically it was a 5-point summary letter of what we left that meeting with, which all three parties were going to hopefully strive to have a dialogue and see if we could come up with some kind of resolution. Just real quick, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, to summarize, it was Gulf County indicated that it would seek the approval of the purchase of the subject parcel from the owner for a negotiated price, commensurate with the proper appraisal values and additional costs and fees. The second item in our summary letter that we left that meeting was the city of Port St. Joe would possibly seek authorization and approval to possibly convey to the parcel owner comparable acreage within the 65 acres of designated land within the city that has already been identified for future workforce and affordable housing programs, and the construction with the condition of the performance by a date certain on the reversion of the land to the city. The third item in the letter to the city was the city of Port St. Joe's previous negotiated density with Gulf County over that contested 172 units for the 65 acres would be unaffected by this additional density and units available to the parcel owner if there was an agreement reached. The city of Port St. Joe and the parcel owner would agree that the same density sought for the subject parcel currently as R3, I believe what Jim had indicated, that would be also applied to this and move forward, so it wouldn't adversely affect the property owner if they were to come into this 65-acre tract. And then number 5, the city of Port St. Joe would agree upon the purchase of the industrial tract by Gulf County that it would record with the deed restrictions, and it will initiate the removal of its filed opposition. The county would remove its opposition, obviously, to the annexation, being the owner of the property, and also with regards to moving forward in its land use classification, it would remain as an industrial tract owned by Gulf County. So those were the 5 summary points that were sent to the city on September 11th. We noticed the meeting for today at 3 o'clock, which we're all reconvening for today. I think we've had some dialogue with Clint, and he has responded in some emails to me, and I appreciate everyone being here today. I think we just need to pick up, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, and go from where we left off. I think maybe the city has some updates for us, I think the county has obviously some input and some additional information that we've been working on. And then ideally, Ms. Haddock can come up and give her some comments. Obviously, she's directly affected by this as both a property taxpayer, a county property that's now been moved into the city. So I think those three parts to the puzzle are vital to today's discussion.
All right, thank you, sir. All right. Mayor, Mr. Hoffman, anything you want to add or talk about?
I'll try to, Sandy, I'll try to summarize the email that Clint sent to Jeremy on a couple of things that could not happen with the proposal. The first one was there's not any more property out there that's buildable. And number two, you can't give government property to a private individual or a private landowner. Ms. Haddock would have to form a 501c3 nonprofit in order to even, participate in what we had talked about doing. So if that's the Reader Digest version of it, Jeremy, that's kind of where I'll leave it right now.
Okay.
May I, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Mayor and Clint's on the phone. Have you all discussed or explored public-private partnerships kind of similar to what the county and some other municipalities have done throughout the state, where you can advertise and bring in a private landowner and work with them in a cooperative spirit?
We have not.
Can everybody hear me?
Only because Ms. Haddock would have to form a 501c3, and number two, there's no more buildable property. We've got 172 units. We maxed out what's usable on that 65 acres. And so that was just, we left it at that because we knew that you couldn't build any more out there, so there's no use to go into that. Is that right, Clint?
Yes, it is. And in speaking with Ms. Haddock, it really wasn't something that she was interested in doing.
Okay, well, that to me, as a county attorney, that's a big deal. So if that's not something that the private landowner wants to do, then it's a non-starter, right? So
Right.
if you have the private side of it that doesn't want to participate in that for whatever reason, which they're certainly entitled to, we had done some homework in the 11 days since, and we had come up with some parts of that track, which actually is close to where you guys have your municipal operations off of 10th Street. We've located some land upland in those tracks, and I didn't know if I can give it to Jim and you guys can look at it, if it's helpful to the city. As like I said, it doesn't matter whether the city wants to do it or not if the private landowner doesn't, but I'd be happy to give this, and what I'll do is I'll pass around to show the commissioners, and then I'll work its way around to you guys as we continue the meeting. So it's about 3 acres we identified on that. Just pass that around. But like I said,
And frankly, I was under the impression that the county was interested in just buying a property, and that would end the whole scenario without the footnotes and so forth.
yeah, so Mayor, not to close any doors, because I think it'd be great to have them all open, but again, if Ms. Haddock doesn't want to do that, then I agree with you wholeheartedly that if that's not something to move this project that she said she wanted to do into the city, then I think that leaves us the other part of that letter and that discussion amongst the county and city, which was the county had offered if it was doable that they would step up and buy that land. And so I think unless there's any objection or commissioners want to comment, we can move to that part of the discussion. But I don't know if you want to talk any more about workforce or affordable, but if the landowner is not interested in doing it, I don't know if you want to spin our wheels and talk any more about it.
I agree. But I thought this was gonna be workforce housing. I thought this parcel over here was gonna be. That's why we even went down that road. It was said, y'all were annexing it because it was gonna be workforce.
I believe Ms. Haddock.
You were annexing it because
That's what I thought. I was just clarifying that. I thought that's what.
Yeah, I would just add that the reason why we offered to reach out to Ms. Haddock was we were under the impression that she was planning on building affordable housing on that track, and so we asked that if the city could swap it and let her build affordable housing on their 2.5 And then
Right.
we came back then and said we would purchase that so we can leave it industrial and it can stay in the city if they annex as industrial property. So that's what I think that's why
And to
we,
your point, Commissioner, I think the incentive to the county to buy it, as I understood it, was that in this trade, if there was land in the city, that even I mentioned to Clint, it doesn't have, it could be whatever amount they come up with per acre, that if they sold it to her, but the incentive for the county is that you were accomplishing workforce housing. So I think there was a universal want amongst all 10 commissioners at the last meeting that you wanted workforce housing. It's just as to where it was going to be. And I think your incentive from the county was, if we're going to buy the land to keep it industrial from Ms. Haddock, there's still the residual benefit to the community of having workforce housing being developed within the city track. And if that's not part of it, that's something that you 3 commissioners need to carry back, I would assume, to the 5 commissioners tomorrow and let them know that that's not part of the project now. I mean, it doesn't look like there's a workforce housing project at the end of this rainbow.
Gotcha. That's what I wanted to hear. So
Yeah.
it's
And
not
I don't
work-
know
it's
that,
not
I'm just,
workforce. I got you.
that's what I understand it to be right
It's
now.
not workforce.
Is that, I mean,
I think you need to hear from Ms. Haddock.
I think so, too.
Because we're talking all around her and she's sitting right there. My impression from the get-go was she wanted to build some housing on her piece of property in hopes that some of her employees could find a reasonable place to buy, rent, what have you. I don't think we put any restrictions on her, in my mind, of actually what kind of housing she was gonna build out there. But anyway, go ahead.
Okay, I don't know what am I supposed to just
Yes,
say my
introduce
name
yourself.
and my
Yes, ma'am.
address?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Kay Haddock, 702 Monument Avenue. Thanks, everybody, for meeting on my behalf many times now. I think that it would be helpful just to kind of start from the beginning on where all this started. I didn't really want to get into all this, and I haven't really expressed any of this, but I'll be Reader's Digest and tie it up in a neat bow for you. In 2022, when I found this piece of property that was owned by a family that had owned it for about 30 years, there were 12 platted lots there that were in the X-flood zone. They were owned by the county, and it was going to be easy peasy. And let me tell you why I say easy peasy. Because, and for those of you that don't know who I am, I'm a real estate broker in this town and have been for 23 years. And my husband died, and I have 2 restaurants now that I operate. We employ about 100 people in the summertime. And so just for context of what our life looks like when we're trying to have people come to work every single day, is that they are getting here at 8 or 9 or 10 in the morning. They're leaving at 10, 11, or 12 o'clock at night in the middle of summer and driving to Panama City. We were having to shuttle people back and forth from Panama City. When I bought this property, we still have these issues, but they're not as huge as they were in 2022. But we were having to shuttle people back and forth to Panama City, just like Eastern Shipbuilding does every single day, 300 cars a day back and forth, because they live over there because there's nowhere to live here. So just so you know, I'm not the only one that's struggling with this. Everybody wants jobs here, but we've got to have a place for them to live. So this is literally right off of Highway 98, right off of Industrial Road. Quite frankly, if somebody, has to ride a bicycle to work, they can ride a bicycle from there. It's so close to the restaurants. So that's why I found this property, contacted this family, and asked them if they would sell it. Before I contacted the family and asked them if they would sell it, I sent my contractors to sit down with Gulf County, and it was Lee at the time when he was over planning and zoning, and Doug was coming into transition. So there were 3, 4 different people at planning and zoning that sat in every single one of these meetings. So we have witnesses of what they were told. And they were told that this was mixed-use commercial property, that you had the land planning maps that showed that on there. Now, if you've since changed it, I'm not aware, but it had mixed-use commercial. They said that's absolutely what you can do here. There's 12 platted lots because it used to be a neighborhood a long time ago, and that I could build workforce housing there, and so that was what my plan was, okay? So I went back, we had 4 or 5 different meetings. There's some alleys that surround it, and a lot of alleys in the county get abandoned, and everybody splits them. And so I had a question about that abandoned alley. But before I get into that, let me just explain to you that I went and got some advice from somebody else, and they said, get it in writing. I went back to the planning and zoning, and I said, get it in writing. And he goes, you don't need it in writing. Here is the map. This is what you're allowed to do. You can do mixed-use commercial here. So whether I wanted to build all workforce housing or maybe something that could be rented to an electrician or a plumber or something like that. I mean, I had the ability to do that. So I bought this property with that intent. Okay, so then I spent about $45,000 clearing the property, and as soon as I cleared the property and asked about the abandoned alleys, I was told that Michael Hammond said, no way in hell is she gonna build anything there. This is industrial property and we're not gonna allow it. So because I had just taken over these restaurants and had all this employee stuff going on, and I run a real estate brokerage, I didn't have the bandwidth to go get a lawyer and start fighting about what I was told, so I didn't do it. So there's my neat little bow package of what actually happened to me as a person buying in Gulf County, which, you know, I sell property every single day, and I've never had anybody have to go through this before. And I've certainly dealt with planning and zoning in your department many, 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 many times over my career. So this is what happened. So I tabled it all and decided that I would just wait until I could clear the air so that I could take on a project. So I did, and I hired somebody to get it annexed into the city, where I thought, you know, I've sat on all these boards with the city commissioners, I've been on downtown redevelopment, I serve in this community, and God knows I pay plenty of property taxes in this community. Now, it might not be to the county, it's to the city, but, you know, I appreciate that all they've done to support me with this, and that they, you know, were willing to vote it in to be annexed. But this is where I sit today, and then now, in a week, I get a notice that I'm supposed to swap my property to go somewhere else in the back where it's, you know, swampland back there, and they don't frankly really have the space. I don't think, if you dig into it, I know they've given you a space that they think they've carved out to give me, but that's not what my intent was when I bought this property. So, you know, I am interested in building workforce housing, and I don't think the annexation was really the time to have to bring up all the planning and zoning and exactly what I wanted to do with the property, but that's the intent. So sorry to bore you with my big, long story, but I think that to give context of where I've been and where I've come and where I'm at, I'm in real estate, everything's for sale. I ran comps on the property, I sent them to Jeremy. I'm not a commercial appraiser, so obviously you would have to have a commercial appraiser. I will entertain the idea if the county wants to buy this property from me at a fair market value price, if you want to get an appraisal, and we can talk about it once we see what that looks like. That's how I feel about it right now. Any questions?
Well said. We got it. Ms. Kay, you said, but you did set out, you say you sat down with the planning department in 2022,
Oh, yes.
and they told you
Yes.
that's mixed
And
use
everybody knows.
commercial. And, okay.
Everybody knows. You can contact Lee. I can bring in all the witnesses. I didn't do all that for today's meeting. I
Right,
didn't
right.
think it was necessary. But if we want to have all of it, you know, spilled out with all the people, there, all the people that were the players and all of that are available.
So you were shown a map, you said?
Oh, yeah, there's a map that showed where the county was mixed use. It's red, I think it is on there.
Okay,
I don't have it with me today,
Right,
but
I
we can
understand.
provide it.
okay. All right.
You've
thank
got a planning and zoning map for the county of what things are, you know,
Right, right.
what's it called, the layering map, what's it called? I'm not thinking of it right. Jack.
GIS.
The GIS site that showed the legend of what the property is zoned as. And there wasn't just one meeting. It wasn't like pop in, show
Right,
the
right.
map,
No, I
and say
understand.
this is okay. This is several meetings, like probably 5.
Okay.
And you can talk to Doug about it, and you can certainly talk to Lee about it, because he was kind of driving the bus on all that at the time, and he knows exactly what was said. And you can talk to, there was another admin assistant or something that was involved in that, and then I can get all the names and provide any of that documentation necessary.
Okay.
Yeah, I got a couple of questions. So in 2022, you bought property, paid how much?
240.
240 for 2.5 acres. At that time, it was, you said it was you met with them, it was,
On the GIS map of the county of what the proper zoning is for all the property in the county, it was on the map as mixed-use commercial. And there's like 4 little subdivisions there, you know, like 4 little platted spots where that used to be like a little neighborhood back, I don't know when. Anyway, and so there's 12 platted lots there that were zoned mixed-use commercial, owned by the county in the X-flood zone. So you could see how perfect it was for what I was planning to do.
okay, and so at that time, it was 12 houses.
It's 12,
So
it
you
was
bought
12
it-
platted lots,
So that was intent. Then was it intent then to do workforce, or was it?
workforce,
12 workforce houses in 2022?
yep.
You hadn't got a price point. I mean, have you been working with Kathy Gilbert on that, our local
Now,
person.
remember, this was 2022. I'll get you the names of who's Kathy?
She just like the person that spearheads it for the county.
In 2022 she was?
Yeah, she's been here since the hurricane, correct? What's her group called? Long-term recovery, yeah, so they have, there's a group here, so if you're trying to get workforce out, I think y'all are with her, don't y'all do something with her, Kathy?
This was just the
Your project
people,
that y'all
this
do
was
is
just
not
the
with Kathy?
people in the planning and zoning
Yeah,
department
this ain't
during
got
due
anything to do with-
diligence.
yeah, this-
Whoever is
this don't
sitting in
have
that
anything to do with-
department.
Yeah.
Oh, that's why I was asking if that was, so there had nothing to do with that.
No, this was just, I could just go and build houses there and rent them. It's almost 4 years ago now.
Do you understand did they tell you why that land is important for industrial? Just to throw it out there. Someone's probably never told you that, have they? So if you look right across
I'm
there.
trying to figure out why we've had 6 hours worth of meetings over this
Well,
little
I
2.5
can tell you, I can
acres.
tell you very specifically.
Okay,
If you're ever gonna have work, you have a comp plan. You understand comp plans.
yeah.
If you're ever gonna have businesses down this south end, you've got to have an industrial area where you can attract businesses. It's not good practice to have a comp plan with any type of residential in the middle of your industrial comp plan area.
And why was it zoned mixed-use commercial?
I
Say, if Michael was sitting here, he'd tell you it wasn't, going back to 1990. I understand Kay's perspective, and I understand her opinion, but that's where it's going to be fleshed out. So if we can't get a resolution, it's not.
Okay.
And I mean, it's been
I just
industrial
want her to
since.
know why
the
that
entire,
importance.
everything there is industrial. It has been industrial for the better part of 35 years, not going back prior to that. But if you look at it, everything around it, there's nothing else in there. So that's the way it's always been with the county. So I understand you come into the county, I understand looking at maps, I understand layering, I understand the representations that were made to Ms. Haddock, and that's going to all have to be part of the process that's dealt with. Yeah, and I agree, I appreciate it. Like, today's not the day to come in and bring in 10 people and have them all raise their right hand, but like I said, the county has always approached that as an industrial tract, just as they have the entire zone. That's why we're in
So
court
if
right
the-
now on the other one, so,
If that was true, then why didn't they represent it that way? I wouldn't have bought the property.
yeah.
Well, I think it's fair I think it's fair to also acknowledge that new information has just been disclosed by Ms. Haddock. I think she speaks volume in my mind. Now that I know you have someone that spoke who was speaking on behalf of Gulf County. I mean, that's a fact. And as far as this, how it was zoned, seems to keep coming up. Both commissioners from the city and the county, I can tell, are puzzled just like me. I know that in one of the meetings that we had at the city level, Ray Greer, who's the city planner, mentioned to you, Mr. Novak, that as early as 2 hours prior to the meeting we were in at the time, it was listed on the Gulf County website as Ms. Haddock just explained. And most all of the people that have been here for 30 years or more can testify to knowing people or seeing people in Kenny's Mill residential neighborhood. So I don't understand. I'm having a hard time grasping the stance of the county arguing that, 75 years it's been industrial or commercial or all of this, when your website it was not in agreement with that. We've heard that your website was within hours of a meeting, was posted as something else. We agree that for the people that have been here very long, no, it was a community. So I have a hard time believing that for 75 years this has been a industrial only site. And I realize Kenny's Mill had a sawmill, but people lived there, and that's why that map still represents, or it was at that time, I don't know what y'all have now that you've changed, but it was homes there. It was a neighborhood. There were families living there. It was not industrial. or if it was industrial, somehow or another, they built on industrial, platted property, so.
And then the county continued to market it as mixed-use residential there, and so therefore they gave me incorrect information.
And if that's the case, then like you say, Ms. Cable, then we got an issue. We got an issue with, I guess, dragging you along thinking it's one thing, and then all of a sudden it's changing it to another thing. So I think we have to also do our due diligence and make sure, like you said, if you got someone led you along to believe that you were purchasing mixed-use commercial, and that you bought it based on
Lee,
buying
Doug, and
mixed
Edmund were in that, every single meeting that was done, because he was learning along the way, and, I mean, and then he's the one that came back and said they're gonna say it's industrial and not let you do what we said you could do, basically.
Mr. Chairman, Kay, you mentioned it was marketed by the county. When you say it's marketed, you're saying?
Not market, I'm using the wrong words. It's displayed by the
Right.
county. And
So-
I went to Tallahassee and checked some woman, and I'm just gonna be ignorant here because I can't remember, y'all, this is 4 years ago, okay?
Right,
So
we understand.
there's been a lot of things that have happened in my life in 4 years. So I went to Tallahassee after I heard that information, and there's a lady that does maps in Tallahassee and had her check the maps on what she has in some books, and you guys might know more about this, or you might know more about this, and that's the way they have it even listed over there, and she confirmed it. So I just, I didn't take it any further, but I mean, I could have.
Chairman, Commissioners, I say it to the mayor too. I think all this is important part of the discussion. I think from the county's perspective, and to Commissioner Hoffman's point, respectfully, I think in the 1930s, obviously Kenny's Mills, and it was obviously mill homes back then. And so when we refer to 75 years, I think historically, better part of 3/4 of a century ago, it was residential at one time. I think the county's looking at it from when the comp plan was done in 90 up through 92. So if you fast forward for the last 35 years, and what we've done, just so Kay knows, is the county's gone back over those 35 years. You have to formally have records on record. You have to have the minutes, you have the adoption, you have to have formal instruments which change these designations. I understand the representation with regards to the
Do we
map.
have formal
That's what I'm
designation
saying.
change
So
on
there's
that
nothing.
particular parcel with that parcel
Right.
ID number
So
from the
that- so-
county?
So you've narrowed the scope, which is exactly the question that needs to be asked, okay? So the question is, if you look at the industrial track and the industrial, all that out there, from 1990 forward, is there something on public record in the clerk's office for the whole world to know that when that 2.5 acres, or even more so than the 2.5 acres, all of those, the Kenny's Mills tracks right there besides your 12, when did that happen after 1990 that it was changed from its current industrial zone? And it doesn't exist. There's no public record. So I'm offering that to the city, to you, and to the county, that there's nothing from the last 35 years that it shows that it changed to that. So I understand the representation on the map that you're referring to and going to Tallahassee and the concern. And if there is confusion, I think the most important thing, and I'm going to say this, at the end of the day, a third party is going to look at this and say, when did it change? And that is a critical question. When did we go from what is represented on the map, okay, and the county's obviously taking a position of industrial. When did it happen? And the only way we all do, as I live in the legal world, the only way I can find that is when you examine and search a property, you go back over the last 100 years and you find out the day, the book, the page when it was done.
Well, then that's what the planning and zoning department should have done, and they should have expressed that to me.
Yeah, so it now has to be a public record, so it has to be a decision of the county if it was at the time to do that, to change that, and it doesn't exist. So that is a critical question that needs to be asked, and then at the end of the day, when did it happen? If it didn't happen, then for public record, it doesn't exist. So I understand the map, I understand the confusion, but,
Can
go ahead, Clint,
I say something?
please.
At this particular juncture, all that seems to is probably immaterial. The city has annexed the property. We brought it in as R3. Can we work out something now? And it looks like the thing that we could do would be the county purchase the property, and this would go away. And excuse me, but it's really hard to talk because I have an echo. So I have to it's making it really hard. But as of right now, it's annexed into the city as R3. Where do we go from here?
And,
So,
go ahead.
yes, sir. So in the spirit of conflict resolution, Ms. Kay, is there any way that you could do a commercial type development where it would be, let's say it's favorable to an industrial land use. Let's say it's complementary to an industrial land use. Is there something along those lines that you could use here to finance the other workforce housing project that you have? Is that something that
And
you'd
do
be
it somewhere
willing-
else, you mean?
Yes,
Do the
ma'am.
workforce housing
Right.
somewhere else and use this as a
Right,
commercial?
because from the county standpoint, we're trying to
Well,
identify
it's
one
industrial
area-
right now, so I mean, I don't, you know, I mean,
but I
yeah, there
think- I
could be
think it would
something that could
much more
be,
advantageous for the county and the city as well to have commercial property there on the 2.5 acres, whether it be similar to the storage / offices that were first started, America's Best Mini Storage.
Yep.
Long time ago. Those are
Yep,
the
just like that.
original ones that were there and they were used. I can remember contractors had them, electricians had them, plumbers
Yep.
had them. Any of those type of businesses that would be subsidiary to an industrial use
I mean,
versus housing.
I would consider that. But, you know, it throws all the workforce housing out the window and it doesn't really solve my problem, but, you know,
Sure,
I mean.
Sure, but if that would allow you to make money on this site to finance the
Or
workforce
if you guys want to
housing.
do what you want with it, you can just buy it from me and then I'll just figure out a new plan.
Okay.
Here's the way I'm seeing this whole problem. It appears that we're punishing a private landowner for mistakes, we'll just say, of the county. And because of those mistakes of the county, legal maps, whatever, you know, recorded things, and go through all that you want to, but you guys are punishing a private property owner, preventing her rights to build on this piece of property. Now, 2.5 acres out of all that acreage out there, personally, I don't think it would stop an industrial whatever's coming for coming. And frankly, Randy's on top of this Maritime Academy. The people working at Maritime Academy could walk across the street, walk across the street and stay, rent a nice place and do their schooling. It's an ideal situation. To me, the easiest resolution is for you guys just to drop the opposition, because it's really not going to be an issue. It's a little tiny piece of property on the highway. And it's just, to me, just common sense. Now, if you want to bite the bullet and say, yeah, we made a mistake, we'll buy the property at appraised value, and everybody walks away, Kay's happy, y'all are happy, we're happy, you could do that. Or you could just drop it and say, it's not that big a deal. It's not going to stop with all the industrial property in this county along that canal.
Right there at the front of the canal, I don't think anybody's going to allow some super industrial property to allow to spill into the bay right there. So I don't think that you're ever going to have some
So-
high-impact
yeah.
industrial property there.
That piece of property is not going to be impacted by 2.5 little old acres over there. That's just my opinion, and you guys wanted to go forth and cause her all these headaches and so forth, and drug her into it, bottom line. And all she's trying to do is build something that'll help people. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Mr. Chairman, if I can, just for the other commissioners who are not here, because I've had individual conversations with them, I don't want, I guess it's been brought up a couple times in different meetings saying, what's the big deal, right? So for the commissioners that are not here, I know specifically in my private conversations it is a tremendous deal. It is a huge deal. It is $100+ million deal. It is the largest private employer Gulf County deal. It is what you have planned for a Marine Academy deal. It is an airport, whether the commission and the mayor agree with that project you all planned, is a big deal. The floating dry dock that you were seeking to spend $70+ million on, regardless of the city's position and their lack of support of it and their vote, is a tremendous deal. So when you say what is a big deal, 2.5 acres in the midst of your entire industrial track is a tremendous deal. And the fact that you change the nature and the character of this land, you have private citizens living with taxpayers that have voting rights that are going to be moving into the middle of this. You have a 4-page letter from the private employer who says that they do not want residential neighborhood next to their operations because they're there 24 hours making lots of loud noises and light. It is a big deal. So for the commissioners that are not here, I know that they would be expressing that, and so I'm relaying that. It is a tremendous issue. Going on to the other thing with regards to the 2.5 acres and just standing down, and I appreciate Clint's comments. I think today, for the purposes of the discussion, regardless of the representations, the county is not at fault. The county is simply trying to preserve the character of this property for the preservation of the whole area. And we're in a conflict resolution under the statute 164 to try to work this out. And I think, Kay was kind enough to work on this. I had asked her last week. She came up with some valuations. I think if the county said if it appraised and they could justify the valuation of it because the other issue is not on the table, I think we just need to focus on that. If the county wants to purchase this to move forward or what you want to do with it, and that's a resolution, then I think the only question is the valuation, whether the county can agree to a contract to buy it from a private landowner. And if we can't, we move past today. We go to a mediation process in the next 3 weeks. And then from that, we've already filed 2 lawsuits. They're sitting in the court system. It's a declaratory action and injunctive relief, and we also have a writ for certiorari challenging the voluntary annexation. They will take time. They will be fleshed out. Everyone's going to have a seat at the table, and then ideally it'll be resolved. But again, I think from the county's perspective, there's few things that are bigger than this, because this is what you all have been working on for your economic development. So I think that's why as if I don't misparaphrase, but this is why you're not putting this issue aside and just walking away.
And I didn't finish the whole, how that works. And Commissioner Husband talked about the commercial side. Would you be amenable to that if it did? Because hopefully in the grand plan of that, if we get that Maritime Academy, which is basically right across the street from there, you're also going to put, that's a pretty large chunk of land there. You're also going to put incubator spots. Are you familiar with incubator spots? Where you attract businesses in that are not ready to set up shop yet, but hopefully they're wanting to set up shop somewhere in your county.
I'm familiar.
So then if right across the street, you've got 2.5 acres that is ready, industrial, commercial, they can pop it in right there. It makes that game a lot easier. We have not won a lot of battles. I know y'all said it in your middle. We have not won a lot of battles getting businesses to come here because we are a long ways. But there are ways to do this, and we're working with people to go down that road. I don't want to be the one sitting here on a board saying, you know what, the future of Gulf County is just going to be this one side, and it's just going to be tourism. I don't want to be that person. We want to explore everything we can, and I know you're not coming from that world, but I have come from that world, okay? And it's very important that you have these incentives when these companies come here. It's easy. It's coming here. You put them there. That's why that piece of property and that industrial, all that land is important to do that, okay? If you haven't, I don't know, whatever you want to put there, and it's people living there, it's not going to be as beneficial there. That's what I'm trying. That's why I want you to have the whole plan, okay?
Well, I've been here 23 years, and for 23 years, they've needed workforce housing. Nowhere for anybody to live. And if you sit with over 100 employees here in the peak of summer in this non-tourist community,
Right.
and you employ all these people that are standing in line to wait to eat at all these restaurants, I'm telling you, they're really there in the summertime, and they're standing, and they need people to wait on them, and they need people to service them so that we do have some sort of an economy here. And it's difficult to transport people back and forth. Eastern Shipbuilding that you're talking about, 300 people a day are driving down Highway 98 in front of the Gulf County tax-paying houses to go home and come back in the morning and go home. And the buzzers, I hear the buzzers. I can hear them at my house. I mean, it's not that loud. It's not that big a deal, and I don't think you're going to have a high-impact commercial environment right there on the front of that. And the city owns that property.
So you said 300. I understand the 300. You know that a lot of those people, they're not even Panama City permanent residents. They're contract people. That's
But they
why
don't
we're
have
trying
anywhere to
do-
live. That's why they're
Well, you can
they're
also
coming
live
from
in Callaway
Panama.
for the same house for $200,000. It costs you $400 over here.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, there's nowhere.
Sure.
I don't employ people that are buying $300,000 and $400,000 houses. I employ people
Absolutely.
that can pay $600 to $800 a month for rent. That's what doesn't exist here. That's what's difficult. And I don't want to get into, just trying to argue about like what, I mean,
I wasn't
if
arguing, I
you,
was just
if you, I know, I mean, if you live here, I think you know that this has been a difficult problem that
Right.
and the county and the government is not the people that are going to address workforce housing. It's the people that are impacted by needing a place for people to live so that they can work for you.
And we're not disputing the need for workforce housing, just not at this location.
Well, then, I'm with you, okay? If you guys want to buy it back and do whatever you want with it, you can buy it back at market value. And I'm open to that.
So how do we arrive at market value? What's the,
Just gotta
for
get-
the
he said
county
we'd have to have a
purposes?
commercial
It's not like we
appraisal.
would normally do on a normal transaction. So Jeremy, how does that work on a county transaction?
What's important is, before we leave discussion too, is if we left today and we have no resolution with the city, who our conflict is with, okay? Then I will notice with Clint, we'll go to a mediation session, I guess the mayor participated back in April. Along that same line, because regardless of that, we can work with Ms. Haddock. We can go out, we can see what we think that it appraises at, and we can make a proposal to her. And ideally, whether she accepts it or not, I think where the rubber meets the road is, obviously, Kay had indicated she bought it 5 or 6 years ago, right? Originally,
2022.
yeah, she was talking about, electricians or plumbers or doing something, maybe doing something there, and then obviously everyone's life takes turns, and she now come back to it a couple years later and says, you know what, I have a need for this for my employees, whether it was 12 houses then or how many she's going to fit there now. But she's obviously wants to do something else with it. So what it's appraised at for that industrial park and what the county's willing to pay. So we all have to agree on what is going to be the character of the property, right? So if you're going to go out and appraise this as single-family residential lots, I don't know that that's ever going to work for the county. You know what I
Well,
mean?
first
So-
of all, it's mixed-use commercial in my mind. That's what I bought, okay? And we have it annexed into the city that is completely owned by city property, city utilities, everything. It makes sense for the city to have this property. So that's why I went for the annexation. And then they agreed to it. It's an enclave that's owned completely by the city that is under their jurisdiction. So they have agreed and honored what I have said and voted, which I appreciate, have voted in my favor for it to be, zoned R3. And so now, really, you're just asking me to do something different. And I said, if you want to do something different, then just make me an offer. I think that's the only fair thing for me to do because I was not directed the right way from Gulf County. And no offense on
President,
Gulf
I
County,
think
it's just what happened.
Right.
I think the resolution we need to take away from today is the same thing that we took away from the first one without the part in there forcing her to build workforce housing somewhere else. I think we all agreed that we would zone it back to industrial and leave it there. And you guys are gonna buy our property, and that was it. So far as, in my mind, I don't know what else, we can talk about. It's up to you guys and Ms. Haddock.
So there's a couple tracks we can follow, and the mayor's comments earlier about the importance of this. Some people have already approached me privately and asked me, in my capacity as just a private attorney, what is the likelihood of me getting my property in there changed? So when you talk about how important this is for Ms. Haddock's purposes for 2.5 acres, and the mayor and the city, Commissioner Hoffman, there's other people now that are looking at this. So you talk about precedent, you talk about you setting the bench. So why is it important also for you all? Because you obviously have initiated your opposition to it. You've said how important this area is, but you now have private landowners out there asking around about what they can do to go through the city process and maybe take a 50-acre tract or a 115-acre tract. And so, and I know Ms. Haddock's certainly entitled to her property rights. You have other people exploring them now too. And you need to be mindful of that because you're the county commissioners, you're the city commissioners, but the precedent will be set. So the opposition's been put, because this is 2.5 acres, which is not a lot of land, but it's not just about this 2.5 acres. It's about the entire industrial zone. So we can walk from today. If we don't have a resolution, we'll conclude, Chairman, with the mayor and the commissioners. We'll meet our statutory requirement under the Florida statute for a conflict assessment. I will send a letter to Clinton, as I have before. We'll set a mediation date. The reason I offer that comment is because after today, there is no public meetings. you can all talk about it in your public meetings as the mayor and the commissioners can, but in terms of having this open dialogue, there won't be another opportunity for you all to have this where it's a fluid. Mediation is not allowed in the court. So whatever's discussed in mediation is privileged. And so these discussions will now start to become isolated and closed off. So I'd encourage the city and Ms. Haddock and the county to continue to try to work on this. We'll certainly go into our commission meeting tomorrow. I'll report to them how we left today. I'll notice the mediation, and then if the county instructs me to go forward and do so, we can certainly go out and get an evaluation on this property and offer it to the private landowner. If that's something that's agreeable to her, then we'll draw up a contract, and hopefully we can accomplish that and stand down on the rest of this. If it's not, then we already are on the track to move towards the next step in that process. But it sounds as though from the mayor and the city's perspective, that other issue with regards to the city and the property is off the table. So, we could sit here and discuss it for hours, but if it's not something she wants to do and it's not something the city feels as though they have the capability to do, then the county would be the third person, and that voice really wouldn't matter.
So we're on the track now as to, you're gonna bring it back to the board in
I will.
reference
I'll
to
report back to
purchasing-
our commission tomorrow.
In reference to
Yes, sir,
purchasing, or making
of where we were at in the letter of September 11th, of outcome from today. And if the commission gives me instructions tomorrow, we'll go out and get evaluation, and we'll make a proposal to Ms. Haddock. As she indicated, she's open to the offer. She'll see what it is, and she'll make a determination. And if we can reach an agreement on that property, it would be great, because I think a lot of things would be avoided. And if we don't, we'll move towards that mediation date.
So you could not recess the conflict resolution meeting like you did the first one until you guys work with Ms. Haddock to see if things work out? That would eliminate a lot of steps.
And I say this, Mayor, I don't know what else can come from the conflict assessment. I think the cities have made it clear you're not having it go into the city, into your 65-acre tract. And so I don't know that us coming back, what would still be resolved from the city's perspective? Because the conflicts between the city and the
What will
county.
be resolved, in the meantime, you guys buy her property. That's
Sure.
what resolved the whole
Sure.
thing.
Sure, but the city
Yeah,
and the county's
it has
conflict.
nothing to do with all
Fully
the
confirmed
other, it doesn't have anything to do with all the other items that were on that 5. The one item that'll solve the problem is you guys buy her property, and we could recess this conflict resolution while you guys negotiate with Ms. Haddock, and if it works, fine. If not, then we're back to going through the mediation and those type things. So, I mean, that's the way I look at it.
Mr.
I
Chairman,
agree.
it appears to me that we're 179 degrees off. From the mayor's comments earlier, I don't see why we would want to recess this meeting again.
Why are you putting it on us?
You put it on us earlier.
We're fine. We're
I'm
fine
fine.
with you guys buying the property. That's it.
And
Jack.
we don't need to recess this meeting for us to buy the property. If the county and the landowner can come to an agreement, it has nothing to do with the city.
Absolutely not. And that's what we're hoping to get the
That's why-
resolution.
That's why there's no point in recessing this meeting.
Mayor, I think that Commissioner Husband is correct. Either the county and Ms. Haddock work out a deal, or they don't. And if they do, that's wonderful, and there's no reason to have
mediation.
any conflict assessment meeting.
I'm fine. Fewer meetings are better.
Absolutely.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
the county, for the better part of on this particular one, 4 months, and then overall for this calendar year, going back to January, we've been trying to avoid these. So we don't want to be here, Mayor. We don't want to have these conflict assessments. We don't want to put them on timelines. We don't want to follow statute. We don't want to do the things that put us all under time pressure. So the county's been trying to avoid that procedurally time and time again. And so I would hope that we can reach something out with Ms. Haddock, but for the county to put it, we're not putting anything on the city. They have adopted ordinances and moved this forward despite us countless times asking them not to. So we're here because the ordinances have been adopted and we've been put a timeline on the county commission. So if we conclude today, I can report to you all. I think the city commission are going to meet. They're going to have the recommendations from their council and their manager. And I will engage with Ms. Haddock and try to come up with a value for you all if you instruct me to do so tomorrow morning. And then hopefully we can work something out with her in a contract. And if we can't, we'll be noticed and ready to go for mediation, sir.
you said you'd have to have an appraisal, so,
We can't, we couldn't buy the county commission couldn't buy without one.
right,
So, yeah.
so you're just saying it'd be contingent on an appraisal if you
It would
can
have
do
to
it.
be, yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
I'm just trying to
Yes,
figure this
ma'am.
piece out.
Any property the county's ever bought has always been subject
I
to appraisal.
understand.
Yes, ma'am.
I've got one thing I'd like to bring up.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate you coming and shedding light on things that I had no idea about. Based on the reaction of the county, I don't think they had any idea that you had met with the county several times. And this town is small enough to know the names you just mentioned. We know if they're employed currently with the county or they've moved on and are doing other things outside of the county. And I disagree with Mr. Novak's statement when he said that the county's not at fault. I think that's a pretty bold statement. I'm not a lawyer, don't want to be a lawyer, but I feel like I got common sense. And if I put myself in Ms. Haddock's position and I had met with the county, the very people that the county employed, and they spoke directly for the county and said, no problem, go right ahead, build what you want to build, because they're looking at the same maps that the person who bought the property is looking at. There was no discussion, I didn't hear any discussion about a conflict of maps and zoning and all of those things. And I think when the truth finally rises to the top, I say that a lot. It seems like the truth, it takes a while to get to the top, but it'll come to the top. If I put myself in this Haddock's shoes, I would already be suing the county, no doubt. And I would let an independent third-party judge weigh in. And I think the truth is going to rise to the top based on subpoenas and mandatory telling of the truth, the whole truth. And I think that's the key if I was in Ms. Haddock's position. Now, my advice would be to the county, you better buy the property quick, because if it goes through that hearing and that judge does discover that the county is and was responsible, and that's where all of this went south. It sounded to me like the building department were all in agreement. And then based on what I just heard, it reached the county administrator's desk, and he's like, oh, hell no. Well, that should be alarming to people to hear that. And I believe that is the truth. And I think that's what will come out when it's all said and done. So, and I am in agreement that we don't need to continue to postpone this meeting. I think everybody's had ample time to speak their mind, and I appreciate the county holding the meeting and trying to resolve this. And I especially appreciate the county and the city for inviting the very person who holds the truth. So that's all I have.
Let me say this, Mr. Haddad, thank you for coming. Just to go along with some of the things Mr. Hoffman was saying, if it does, and if you do sue the county, I mean, which you have the right to do so, because I'm pretty sure we may have some questions also. And like I say, if you was told one thing, but then again, it's another thing if you got the evidence right there in front of you also, because a lot of times people can promise people something and then they back up on it. So there's a lot of questions that I know I have in reference to what you were told, and if you were told something, and if they do have the maps of that, then that is something that the county commission needs to see so that we can make an informed decision and not.
That map is there. If you change the map, you change the map. You changed it recently.
And
But that map has been there, and it was there before I bought the property, and I have evidence of that.
Okay. And if that's, and like you said, if that's the case, then we definitely need to
And
see.
you can just go back and probably talk to Doug. You can call Lee too, and it'd probably be easy for you.
Okay.
I'm not gonna stand, I'm a busy person.
Right,
I'm not gonna
right.
stand up
And we
here
don't
and
wanna
even
waste your
sit here and
time.
talk to you
Right,
and say
right.
something that's not true,
Right,
so.
Right, and we don't want to waste your, like I said, we don't want to waste your time, but like I said, we definitely need to see, we want to see those maps also, so we can say, hey, well, you told Miss K that this was mixed use commercial, and now you're saying one thing else, so, but we definitely, we're gonna follow up and make sure we can get
Okay.
so we can see those maps for ourselves. With that being said, it's easy to, like say, we get the finger pointed at the county a lot in reference to a lot of things, because some of the decisions we make are not popular decisions sometimes.
I understand, and I'm not out here
Right,
for some
right.
popular decision
Right,
on me.
right.
I'm just out here for the facts that I was told when I bought the
Right.
property, or
And
I wouldn't have
agree.
bought it.
And I understand that, like I said, if you was told one thing, that then,
And I've never had this happen to a customer.
I agree, I got you. But thank you once again for coming to the to the
Thank you.
meeting.
Thanks,
Appreciate
everybody,
you.
for their time. I
Yes.
appreciate it.
Y'all got anything else?
Good.
All right, meeting stands adjourned.